Hi everyone, I'm Rob Watson, the module leader for TECH1002, and this is the overview summary video for the 23rd lecture, which is about augmented reality. And last week what we looked at was the idea of gamification and the way in which we use integrated media as a kind of form of play. And in some ways this takes that the next stage a step further, because one of the things that our digital and socially mediated experiences are increasingly defined by is, if you like, the way that we incorporate and the kind of sense of convergence about these technologies. So no longer are these technologies held separate and discreetly. For example, traditionally you would go home to watch television and then you would go to the cinema to see a movie, or you would sit in a library to read a book, and those discrete experiences where media is housed in a particular location are no longer so clear. So the boundaries between our experience and how we transition between one form of media and another is much more fluid. It's not completely separate, it's not completely integrated yet, but it is something which is increasingly happening. So we can watch movies on planes, we can travel around with electronic books, we can constantly communicate even in situations where we should otherwise be paying attention at the screen or the stage, if you like. So we live in a world where that kind of sense of convergence is very multi-layered and very much something difficult to pin down in many ways. So what I want to do in this lecture is to just introduce some of these ideas and concepts about the importance of this kind of sense of an augmented sense of reality. We've talked about academics, authors, thinkers have talked about the idea of cyberspace and virtual worlds, the places that we inhabit within the computer realm, if you like. But I think one of the things that's taken shape is our human interaction and that kind of sense of augmentation between our physical experience and our simulated experience, our virtual experience. So we see that manifest in things like Pokemon Go and the kind of playfulness that you get with following an app, or things like Zombie Run, or things like using digital data to improve your fitness and training routines. I want to look at this in the context. There's a really excellent book by Andy Meir called Sport 2.0, and this is a really good overview in terms of the core issues that are generally associated with, if you like, the digitization of sport. And sport's a really good example, I think, of where we can look to a social presence and a digitally mediated presence. It's where the money goes, it's where the tech firms demonstrate their investment. So there's a lot of things like virtual golf, virtual football, you've got gaming, electronic games like FIFA, you've got games like World of Warcraft, all of these kind of network, socially mediated experiences that cross the boundary between the real physical experience and, if you like, the mental visual experience that games can offer us. So things like Wii exercise platforms like the Wii and the Nintendo Wii, and really how you use that as a form of a model of integration where it's not a human presence that you're responding to, but it's a virtual presence that you're responding to, but you're responding to it in your own space. And so there's kind of issues here about the authenticity of our social experience. So this is really characterized incredibly well in kind of debate about sport. And when you look at things like the use of digital technology in order for kind of two sides to this, the athlete themselves and how they're supported, and how we understand the physical activity process through the use of digital technology as a way of modelling and defining improvement and calculating data and looking at those kind of data models that drive elite athletes to greater performance, whether it's soccer or athletics or swimming, whatever form of exercise, cycling, whatever form of exercise it is, and athleticism there is, it's now followed by Fitbit technology, heart rate technology. Your phone, my phone has the, kind of the quite a considerable amount of information that it retains, whether I choose or not, about my health, about my activity, the number of steps, the number of flights I climb, how many hours sleep you get, all of those kind of factors, which are forming a massive repository and database for tech companies to mine and sell and develop products around us. The other side is the kind of, the traditional, the other side of sport is the spectatorship, and the notion that we as spectators and people who watch this enactment of activity are, we can enhance that experience by using and supporting virtual supplementary material. So, I mean, the initial starting point for this is to think of the role of television in things like sport. So, capturing horse racing or football or cricket, and then over the decade kind of becomes high definition, and it's supplemented by digital graphics as a way of explaining what's going on in the game and how the subtleties of the game works. And then we now have very realistic simulations of games that we can play and that we can participate in. And there's a kind of an idea which Mia posits, which is that in the future we won't really need to attend the Olympic Games, and he uses the Olympics as a model that kind of demonstrates how these changes, you can map these changes through social progress and technological progress. But he's kind of saying, all the effort that we go to put a games on in one space and to measure it and to make sure it's fair and to kind of, it leaves a footprint, and it kind of has negative effects on some economies and spaces, that that it has a legacy, it has a cost. Well, what if we did that virtually, and that you didn't need to attend the event, but you could simulate the event? You didn't need to be at the event as a performer, and actually differently able people can contribute to the performance of the games and the enactment of the games. So we're in the realm of esports, and that kind of crossover between the authentic human experience, biological experience, which is then supplemented by an electronic experience, which is then supplemented by an entirely digital experience, which you kind of re-represent and you reinvent and you remake. So I found this really fascinating to look at. There's a thread that runs through this, which is kind of try and work out. I'm new to this in many ways. This is going to form the basis of what the final year module, the advanced social media practice module, is about, and how we research and investigate this in terms of its impact on people, how people take this up. So I'm shifting the topic that for next year that the final year students will be using. So hopefully we'll be able to develop a learning program that you can maybe use for yourself as well. So the notes are available on the DMU Commons wiki. Just go to wiki.our.dmu.ac.uk. You can download them as a PDF there, and if you want to have a conversation, if you want to share any examples, go over to Talk, which is the DMU platform which is used as Discourse, which you can download as an app for your phone, for an Android or an Apple phone, and that's at talk.our.dmu.ac.uk. But I'll see you at the lecture.